Good afternoon. Welcome to Kenya News Update today. I'm your host, and we're diving deep into a major announcement from President William Ruto that directly impacts thousands of public servants and the national budget. The headline, Phase 3 of the Prison Services Pay Rise, is set to take effect this July. This is the third and final phase of a salary review program that began in 2024. President Ruto made the announcement on Wednesday, February 26, 2026, while presiding over the 46th passing out parade for 3,862 Kenya prison service recruits. He stated, and I quote, "We have raised salaries for officers at entry level by 36% and 24% at the maximum scale since the review began. The effective date for this final increase is July 1st, 2026. This announcement is part of what the president calls deliberate and comprehensive reforms aimed at building a professional and well-motivated correctional service. But what does this mean for the officers, for the national wage bill, and for the taxpayers funding it? We have a 12-minute deep dive ahead, with multiple perspectives and hard data. Let's begin with the context. The Kenya Prison Service is a critical arm of the national security apparatus. It manages a population of over 54,000 inmates across more than 120 facilities nationwide. The service has long grappled with challenges, overcrowding, with facilities operating at an average of 180% capacity, understaffing, with an officer-to-inmate ratio of 1:8, and historically low morale linked to compensation. The current review process, initiated in 2024, was a response to these systemic issues. Phase 1 took effect in July 2024, providing an average increase of 12% across all ranks. Phase 2 followed in July 2025, with an average bump of 14%. Now, Phase 3, set for July 2026, is projected to deliver the remaining increases to hit the cumulative targets of 36% for entry-level officers and 24% for those at the top of their scales. To understand the scale, let's look at the numbers. Before the review, an entry-level prison constable earned a basic salary of approximately 25,000 shillings per month. After the full 36% increase, that rises to 34,000 shillings. A senior superintendent at the maximum scale, who earned about 180,000 shillings, will see their salary rise to 223,200 shillings after the 24% adjustment. The total annual cost of this three-phase review, once fully implemented, is estimated to add 4.2 billion shillings to the national wage bill. This is for a uniformed service with roughly 28,000 officers. Proponents of the pay rise argue it's a long overdue investment in national security and human dignity. James Omondi, Secretary General of the Kenya Prison Staff Association, joins us in spirit with this statement. For decades, our officers have worked in extremely difficult conditions for pay that did not reflect the risk or the responsibility. An officer guarding dangerous criminals earns less than a county clerk. This review begins to correct that injustice. It is not a gift. It is earned compensation for a vital, thankless job. Morale has already improved significantly since Phase 1, and we expect retention rates to climb. Indeed, data from the State Department for Correctional Services shows a slight decrease in annual resignations, from 420 in 2023 to an estimated 380 in 2025. Recruitment numbers are also up, with the recent passing out parade of 3,862 recruits being the largest single intake in a decade. The government's position, as articulated by President Ruto, is that a motivated, professional correctional service is essential for true rehabilitation, which reduces recidivism and enhances public safety. However, critics raise significant concerns about fiscal sustainability and equity. Economist Dr. Wanji Ku Mwanji from the Institute of Economic Affairs provides a counterpoint. While compensating public servants fairly is important, we must view this 4.2 billion shilling annual increase within the broader context. The national wage bill already consumes over 45% of ordinary revenue. Every shilling spent here is a shilling not spent on building classrooms, stocking dispensaries, or maintaining roads. Furthermore, this creates pressure for similar increases across the entire civil service: teachers, nurses, administrators. Where does it end? We must ask if blanket percentage increases are the most efficient way to boost morale, or if targeted allowances for hardship, risk, and specialized skills would be more fiscally prudent. Her point about ripple effects is valid. The Kenya National Union of Teachers, KNUT, has already referenced the prison's pay rise in its latest submissions to the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, SRC, arguing for comparable adjustments. The SRC itself, the body mandated to set and review public sector pay, has been notably quiet on this specific announcement, leading to questions about process. Did the SRC recommend and cost this Phase 3 increase, or was it a direct presidential directive? Our inquiries to the SRC were met with a standard response. All remuneration reviews follow due process and are guided by the principles of fiscal sustainability and equity. Let's visualize the fiscal impact. The total projected cost of the three-phase review is 4.2 billion shillings annually. To put that in perspective, that amount could fund the construction of approximately 840 new primary school classrooms or purchase 420 fully equipped ambulances for rural health centers. The debate, therefore, is fundamentally about national priorities. Beyond the economics, there's the question of reform effectiveness. Is higher pay enough to transform the Kenya prison service? Commissioner General of Prisons, John Warioba, insists it's a cornerstone of a broader strategy. Salary is a foundational element of dignity, he stated in a recent interview. But it is part of a package. We are simultaneously investing in modern infrastructure, like the new high-capacity prison in Naivasha, designed for 3,000 inmates with better facilities. We are upgrading vocational training programs in 35 prisons to ensure inmates gain marketable skills. We have digitized inmate records in 95% of our facilities. However, all these reforms are implemented by people. If our officers are demoralized and leaving, the best infrastructure and programs fail. This pay rise helps us attract and retain the quality of personnel needed to run a modern, humane, and effective correctional system. Let's examine the recruitment and retention metrics more closely. In the 2 years prior to the pay review, 2022 and 2023, the annual attrition rate, combining resignations and retirements, averaged 4.2%. Preliminary data for 2025 suggests that rate may have dipped to 3.8%. The target, according to internal strategic plans, is to bring it below 3% by 2028. On recruitment, the service aims to hire an average of 2,500 new officers annually for the next 5 years to reach an optimal staffing level and replace retirees. The recent graduation of 3,862 recruits is a significant step toward that goal. But the journey is not without its hurdles. A senior officer who spoke to us on condition of anonymity highlighted persistent challenges. The pay is welcome, yes, but the problems run deep. I supervise 120 officers in a facility built for 800 inmates that now houses 1,500. We have one vehicle for transfers that breaks down constantly. Promotions are still slow. The new salary makes the daily stress slightly more bearable, but without addressing these systemic operational issues, burnout will continue. This brings us to the international context. How does Kenya's move compare with regional and global practices? According to a 2025 study by the African Corrections Forum, Kenya's pre-review prison officer salaries were in the lower third among East African community members. After the full implementation of Phase 3, Kenya's entry-level pay will be competitive with, though still slightly below, that of Rwanda and Uganda for equivalent ranks. However, when measured against the cost of living, particularly in urban areas like Nairobi and Mombasa, the new salaries only just lift officers above the lower middle income bracket. In the UK or South Africa, prison officers typically earn salaries comparable to mid-level police officers, a parity that Kenya is now moving toward. The announcement also comes at a politically sensitive time. With the next general election over 3 years away in 2029, this could be seen as part of a longer-term strategy to consolidate support within a vital uniformed service. Historically, the prison service vote has not been as politically vocal or organized as the police or teachers, but its sheer size, 28,000 officers plus their families, represents a substantial block. Political analyst Mudemi Kayama notes, "This is smart politics from the Ruto administration. It addresses a genuine grievance, fulfills a promise made during the security sector reforms dialogue, and builds loyalty within a strategically important institution. The timing, midway through the presidential term, allows the government to manage the fiscal impact and for officers to feel the benefit well before the next election cycle." However, he cautions, the government must be careful to manage expectations elsewhere in the public sector to avoid a wave of unsustainable demands. So, where does this leave us? The Phase 3 pay rise for prison officers is a significant policy with multifaceted implications. For the 28,000 officers, it represents tangible financial relief and recognition. For the government, it is a costly but potentially transformative investment in a key security institution. For taxpayers and economists, it raises questions about opportunity cost and fiscal discipline. The ultimate measure of success will not be in the payroll system, but in the prisons themselves. Will recidivism rates, currently at 45% within 3 years of release, begin to fall? Will reports of inmate unrest and officer misconduct decline? Will vocational training outputs increase? These are the metrics that will determine if this financial injection translates into genuine reform. As we conclude, we turn to a citizen's perspective. Mary Ashno, a small business owner in Nairobi, summarizes the public's ambivalence. I see both sides. These officers have a hard job and they deserve a decent living. But as a businesswoman, I pay so many taxes. I want to know my money is being used wisely. If paying officers more makes our prisons places of real rehabilitation so we have less crime, then it's a good investment. But if it's just more money into a broken system, then we've wasted our chance. The implementation date is July 1st, 2026. The debate between compensation, reform, and fiscal responsibility continues. One thing is clear: all eyes will be on the Kenya prison service in the coming years to see if this investment pays the intended dividends. For Kenya News Update Today, I'm your host. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to Kenya News Update Today.